Hello there, and welcome to Uncut with Gina and Sukhdev. This is our third series, and all of our guests are influencers. And I couldn't be more thrilled to welcome Anna Anderson, who is our guest today. Anna and I know each other, and we're in for a real treat. I'm going to read Anna's bio. Very impressive. Anna Anderson is an accredited transformational life and integrative health coach, NLP practitioner, and founder of the Nurture and Nourish system and the Warrior Journals podcast. She believes that healthy eating doesn't have to be boring and teaches fun and creative ways to support her clients in creating empowerment through their body and lifestyle choices. Her why comes from her own experience and healing. Having spent years feeling disconnected from her body, sabotaging with food, alcohol, and shopping, and regularly starting a new diet, she found a new and loving way forward, which transformed her life in incredible ways. Anna says that when we put our health and well-being at the top of our to-do list, we can lead from a powerful place of confidence and energy. So, welcome. Can you share with us your journey? Because I know from your bio that your journey, your personal journey, has had a profound impact on the work that you now do with others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your message comes from your mess, right? Well, that certainly was the case for me. And, I now, when I look back, it all makes sense. But at the time, I went through life and ticked all the external boxes that I thought were the things that would make me happy. I did relatively okay at school. I went to university. I got a good job. But actually, looking back, there was an emptiness within me. I wasn't happy. But I was kind of doing okay. I wasn't even aware that there was an internal world within me. I didn't have any concept of that. I was partying hard, I was drinking an awful lot, but I was kind of keeping all the wheels on until I became single and pregnant when I was 28 years old. And all of the coping mechanisms that I had been using to that point didn't work any longer. I was suddenly lonely. I wasn't able to go out. I wasn't able to socialize. The people that I was friends with weren't parents. My whole world got turned upside down very, very quickly. And I wasn't coping. I was, still working. I was trying to look after my little boy. He didn't sleep for 4 years, so I was really, really tired. I wasn't getting on with his dad, so I was kind of dealing with an awful lot of aspects of juggling an awful lot from a place of not being well within myself, and using food and alcohol to cope, to comfort, and really, really disconnected from who I was. I was deeply unhappy, and I didn't know that there was any other way. I was judgmental of myself. I was critical of myself. It wasn't a happy place at all. So all the wheels came off, and I was using alcohol to even get to sleep. And one day my son went to stay with his dad, and I just fell apart. I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I cracked open a bottle of gin at 10:30 in the morning and drank the whole thing, and realized in that bottom of that bottle, something had to change. I didn't know what it was, but I knew there was something more that I had to offer life and my son and myself than what I was currently experiencing.
So that must have been very challenging. And I'm sure that there are a number of our listeners for whom one or other of the things, or even all of them, will resonate because they are facing something similar. So there you are, it's 10:30 in the morning, you've drunk the gin, you've recognized that this can't go on, but that's a far cry from where you are now. What was how did you pick yourself up? What is it that happened that made the difference?
Yoga. So I took some probably not very advisable steps from there. I knew that something had to change. I knew that I couldn't carry on as I was being pulled in too many directions, but also my worth, I now know, wasn't within me at that point. It was outside of me. So it was in my career. It was in anything that I could label that I might measure myself against, but it wasn't within. And that was a huge healing piece. But what I did was, the only piece of identity I had left apart from my son was actually my career, that I was a single mum and life was hard, but at least I had a good job. That was the story that I'd been telling myself. And I gave it up. And I gave it up because I was exhausted, I wasn't doing it well, and I was commuting a lot. And I didn't know what to do, though. I didn't know. I was solely responsible financially for me and my son. I was earning a good wage, but I knew that I wouldn't have enough time with him when he started going to school. So I gave up my job. And what I did the next day after that drunken day was Google jobs for mums. And at the top of the Google list, don't take business advice from me, I don't think that's very sensible, was buying a yoga franchise. And something inspired me to explore more. I had done some yoga in the past. I'd never done a downward dog. I'd practiced Bikram yoga, so it wasn't, there was so much about yoga I didn't know. And I bought the franchise, and I went into my job on the Monday, and my coach my business coach said, don't do this without thinking about it. And I said, I've already done it. I've done it. It's done. So I handed my notice in, went to India, learned to become a teacher, and built a business in my local area as a yoga teacher. And in the practice of yoga, I created space for myself, because I had to learn yoga to be able to teach yoga. And I learned the philosophy, I learned the practice, but I learned how to love who I was. I learned that I had an internal world. And in that space, in that quiet, I built a relationship with me. And that became so healing. And then through my classes, I realized that actually I wasn't alone in everything I had been feeling. It was actually quite consistent with the people coming to my classes. And so what I wanted to do was to learn how to not only heal myself. So it started with yoga, but then there was therapy and coaching and all sorts of things. And then I became qualified and trained to be able to teach people what I had learned for myself and bring it all together in food, in movement, in mindset, in learning that we have our worth deeply within us and to connect to that. So yeah, it's been a journey.
And now I don't believe you teach yoga anymore.
No, I gave up teaching yoga because I got so passionate about coaching, and I can guide people to yoga, but I can make more difference actually coaching them and getting into the deeper stuff. Although I love to teach, but it's not something I do very often anymore.
And in terms of the coaching, who are your clients and what do you do with them?
Yes. So my clients are women. They tend to be often mums, around 35, 40 plus. And they think that they want to lose weight. They've been battling with dieting or sabotaging patterns, or maybe just not feeling happy. What has happened is they followed the course of life, which is mostly, I believe, teaches us, do these things. Your worth isn't in you, it's outside of you. And, keep following this path that we've told you will make you happy. And then when we do it all and we get there, we're like, but I'm still not happy. And now I'm a mum and I'm tired and I'm trying to tick all the boxes and I keep doing everything for everyone. And I feel really empty on the inside and I'm exhausted and I've got no energy. And I keep going on a diet because my worth is in my body image and I'm not getting there with that either. And it's impacting how I parent, it's impacting my relationships, it's impacting my career, my confidence, everything. And I don't even know where to begin anymore. So that's kind of where someone comes to me, and then we pick it apart and we start from the ground up. So let's change your food first. I do blood work. I understand what's going on from a vitamin and mineral perspective, because we can't be happy if our body isn't happy. I teach my clients how to eat and balance their blood sugar. So often they're used to eating really like bad diets that dieting companies have taught them, or they're restricting food, they're counting calories, so the metabolism is out of whack, and they're just disconnected from their body. So they don't believe that it wants to thrive, it wants to be healthy. They don't understand how to work with it. So teach them how to eat, how to give their cells vitality. And then we start doing the mindset work. So it's about getting to know who you are. What are your values? What's your belief system? How is your belief system disempowering you? Where is it conditioned and actually not your beliefs? And how do we recreate a new empowering belief system? Who are you? What's your purpose? Often there's a purpose that's missing. So we get stuck in trying to achieve our worth, but actually, what's your purpose over here? And if we all follows in through that, then that's going to, you know, get you motivated to be moving forward and shifting these things. So it's bringing it all together on a journey, a lovely journey. It's really, really special.
It sounds great. Sukhdev, we've got some questions.
Yes. Thanks for sharing. That's really, really amazing, like how far you've come. Was it for your alcoholism, was it like did you go through the process, like AA and
I'm aware of AA. No, I didn't myself. I didn't need to, but I'm very aware of the steps and have a lot of respect for them. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome that you're able to tap into that and just see the changes you needed to make and make that happen. So let's see here. There was a couple notes I wrote. I'm just gonna have to go back and touch. Oh, what was it about yoga? That was one of the things I wanted to know. Was it just, did you see it as a sign because you typed in on the internet and yoga was the first thing that came up and you're like, hey, that's what I got to do? Or was there, I know you've done yoga in the past. What was it about yoga that made you really take that leap? Or was it just something that you wanted change and you're like, this is what I'm going to do? It's something, I'm just going to take it. It's an improvement. Or what was it? What was going through your mind at that point?
It wasn't yoga. It was a feeling about that opportunity. So I didn't think it mattered what it was. I was going to do it. I'm really intuitive and I really follow my feelings to a fault sometimes, maybe some could say. So I think I've learned through my growth to listen to that more. And that was one of the first steps, for just listening to it and doing it despite everyone around me saying, you're absolutely crazy. How on earth are you going to make this work? You don't know what you're doing. It's not a sensible thing to do. The one thing you have got going for you is that job and you're walking away. How are you going to support your son? It's really not sensible. And I did it anyway. So I don't know if it was stupidity or bravery or intuition. I'm not sure which one, maybe a bit of all of them.
A lot of people who have that struggle to take that step and to make that change, they get stuck, almost like they're in a big pit and they can't get out. So yeah. Just that you were able to do that, what do you, like, can you pinpoint what it was that really shifted you? You're like, I've had enough of this and I'm going to just do this.
I think we've all got leverage.
That step, what advice would you have, I guess, to help them make that?
Yeah.
Leap?
There are two things. I think we've all got leverage. I think that if we get into enough pain, then there's enough motivation to want to change. And I hit a rock bottom. It wasn't possible anymore. So one of the driving fears that I had was that my son was about to go to school. He was about to start school. And that meant that I would not be there for him in the morning. I wouldn't take him to school. I wouldn't pick him up from school because I wouldn't be back in time. I would only see him every other weekend because he would be at his dad's every other weekend and someone else would do the bits that I loved. So I guess it's a values-driven decision that actually time with him was a bigger priority than the security of a job. So I think perhaps that was a part of it. I'd hit rock bottom. What I was doing wasn't working. And also there's something to be said about your back being against the wall. Like I didn't have any other option in terms of, well, I could have not done that, but once I had decided to do that, I had to make it work. There wasn't a choice. And I think sometimes when we jump feet first into something and then we think about how we're going to make it work afterwards, but we're following our heart and not worrying. For me, it's worry and fear that makes things harder and means things don't work out. But actually, if we don't make it about how and we just trust that it will be okay, then that always seems to pay off for me, I think, for most people.
I think I'd add something into that, the recognizing that actually I will succeed, not sure how, but I will succeed.
Yeah.
And then as you go through, adjusting, rather than this is a failure and oh dear, woe is me, I've got to give up. What can I learn from that? That's not worked. How can I adapt it or change it, or I'll discard that and do something different? But if your mindset is, I have to succeed, I will succeed, you're going to make very different choices, aren't you? To, well, it might not, or I'm frightened that I'll fail. And I think for so many people, as you say, having your back against the wall is the starting point. But I think that the shift from that fear of my back's against the wall, I've got no choice, has to shift if you want sustained big success.
I absolutely agree. And I think it's not about being attached to the outcome. It's like, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I know that my joy and my happiness on a daily basis matters more than what money I'm bringing in. And that focus on joy on a daily basis creates expansion in ways that we can't understand from a mindset level. It's about trust.
Yeah.
I
think that's absolutely true. And I think for me, when you describe what you do with your clients, is that you create that sense of, I'm more than my net worth. My bank balance is not who I am. And actually creating a relationship which is based on being in tune with who they are.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the diseases of the Western world, is that so many people aren't in tune with who they are. And that's one of the reasons why so many people are on antidepressants, are drinking, why suicide's so prevalent, particularly in young men.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah.
So can I ask, moving forward, I mean, you're still young, you've got a lot of time yet.
I hope so.
I'm sure you have. So, you've got a successful business, you're helping many women. Not only, but the losing weight's the side, is the byproduct, if you like, of the new, and for many, I would think for the first time, a great relationship with themselves. But what's the dream for you? Where do you go from here? What's the plan?
Somebody else asked me that the other day, and I don't have one. I want to consistently love what I do every day, and I'm really grateful that I get to do that every day. I wake up and I'm really joyful about my work, and I'm really passionate about helping people awaken to who they are, and I'd like to have an impact in the world in whatever way I'm supposed to, in helping people realize that the way that we have conditioned ourselves in society, in the Western world, is actually really damaging. It limits us, it's limiting, and as you say, it's why we are seeing such great numbers of people who are depressed or struggling with weight, or just not feeling connected to who they are, because we don't even teach that there is an internal world. My son is 10, he is going through education, and I'm seeing his light slowly being bashed out of him, that actually you got an A, you got a B, you're better, and don't listen to your intuition and your wisdom, use this. And I think that if we follow this and then use this to help us, that actually that's a really different way of experiencing life. So if I can influence and help people awaken to who they are, then that means the world to me. And I always imagine women who I've helped holding a candle and that paying forward to other women, because I think, men and women, but I just work with women. When we are in a good place, that pays forward into the world. So if we want to change the world, then we change ourselves first. And if we can keep making an impact, then that's really beautiful. So I don't know what that impact will be or how big it will be, but to keep helping.
It sounds great. So what fills your batteries?
Oh, that's a good question. My self-care. my mental well-being is in being grounded in my yoga practice, in staying spiritually connected, in mindfulness, and making sure that I put my self-care at the absolute top of my to-do list. So even though I'm running a full-time business, I'm a mum, I'm a wife, you know, I have all of these busy things, if that starts to slip and my self-care slips, then I do too. So I have to look after myself first. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, that I don't come last, I come first, because then everyone else benefits.
I think there are many people who find that very difficult.
Yeah.
Who would say, well, that's being a bit selfish, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
That it's, I believe it's selfless, that when we are good, then everyone else is better too, because I am not a good wife, I'm not a good mum, and I'm not particularly good in my business, and I'm not grounded or thinking in a creative way when I'm not good. So it has to be my absolute first, because then I parent and I'm have relationships, and my business is different because of the impact that I'm having from my place of energy. So it's like that old adage, isn't it? On an aeroplane, you put your mask on before your child's, and everyone's like, I couldn't do that. But of course, you can't help anyone if you're not okay.
I think that's a really important lesson, and particularly, I don't want to overgeneralize, but I think it's very common for women to have been conditioned that you put everybody else first, and that's seen as being, you know, the right way to be, rather than self-care. And I want to make the distinction between being loving to yourself, not overindulgent, because some people think that, you know, that I'm being kind to myself when I give myself a second cream cake, and, you know, I don't do any exercise and so on. So there is a differentiation between self-care and self-indulgence, isn't there?
It's such an important point, and I'm really glad that you raised it. So we're talking in my membership group this month about the truth behind self-care, because it is not a glass of wine and a cake, you know. I think it can be so
lovely though that may be.
They're lovely, they're lovely. But you know, it's like, I got my nails painted, I got my hair done. Not that we're getting our hair done in this current climate.
No, as you can tell.
And I don't feel better. And I should, because I'm looking after my self-care. And it's, you know, the self-care is the deep internal work. It's the difficult stuff. It's the forgiveness. It's the acceptance. It's learning to truly love who we are, and learn, I believe, that our mind can tell us all sorts of stories, but if we can crack through those and get to the heart of our truth, and to make those difficult choices, leave a job that we don't love and that doesn't light us up, even though we're frightened of what that might look like. For me, that's self-care. It's being true to yourself. And you're absolutely right. One of the biggest things that I do with the women that I work with is help them see and understand their boundaries. Like, why are you giving everything to all of these people around you? And it's because their worth is in that. Well, if I'm needed, then I'm worthy. And then they give, and they're giving, and they're giving, and I've done that too, until they're at breaking point. And then, of course, we lean on food or alcohol or something to fill up the emptiness inside.
And it actually perpetuates the problem, because then comes the self-loathing and all of the other things that go along there.
Exactly.
It's interesting because we all coach, all three of us. And I'm just interested, Sukhdev, in terms of when you're working with clients, how often you find that self-belief is at the heart of or lack of self-belief, should I say, is at the heart of the problem, and what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, no, it's got a huge piece on the direction of your future, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you. You can't expect for other ones to, like, somebody else to just give you all the belief they can, even though, you know, other people do, you know, like mom believes in me and stuff. But because my mom believes in me doesn't mean that my future is going to be whatever she has and, you know, wants me to create. You got to believe in yourself and look inside to the steps in the future you want, and make it happen for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
we live in really interesting times, don't we? And I think for many people, they're talking about, you know, I want to get back to normal. I suspect that we're not going to ever go back to the old normal. We're going to create a new normal. Moving forward, I'd be really interested in first of all, Anna, your take in terms of what do you think are the important things for people to take on board now as we start to, particularly in the UK, where both Anna and I both in the UK, we're looking forward, we hope, to things becoming a bit freer because we've been in lockdown pretty well for a year. What for you are the things that you think, the learnings that we can take forward from this?
I think that's such a good question. Slowing down, you know, I think that we live in a society where speed feeds directly into this kind of money machine, and we lose what we love because we are pushing and forcing and doing things that we don't enjoy to create what we think we need to prove ourselves. And I think that this, for me, has hopefully slowed people down and got them thinking what's really important, what really matters in the world, and coming at it from a place of feminine energy, that it doesn't mean we don't all experience abundance. It doesn't mean that, you know, we all have to have no money and be stuck, but it means that we take a different approach to it, one where actually we're taking a more joyful and mindful approach. And I'm also really conscious of the planet. You know, have we been mindful of the earth that we live on? And you know, is it sensible for us to go back to normal? Can we go back to normal? Is, you know, flying the way we used to? You know, I used to love going on holiday and all of those things, but is it something that we can continue and maintain, and should we? You know, I think these are all really important questions. I think from a mental health perspective, people have really struggled in lockdown, but also I think that society is missing a community, a sense of community and connection. That whilst we're more connected than ever, we're also feeling lonelier than ever. And obviously we have been for the last year, but before that, you know, how are we connecting? How are we actually spending time with each other and really seeing and hearing, getting to know each other? And I think these are all really important questions. I don't have the answers about what it looks like moving forward, but I hope some really positive stuff comes out of this.
And you have to raise the question, don't you, before you can start finding out the answers.
Yeah.
Sukhdev, what's your view?
After the pandemic? Or
what we learned, what do you hope that we've learned moving forward?
I hope we've learned about kindness and respect and understanding, and knowing that we are all on the same level. If we can all help each other, that's where the magic happens. Like, if, you know, this was a real eye-opener, I think, because a lot of people ended up, you know, going bankrupt or losing their jobs, and all the stresses and anxieties. It really makes you slow down and look at the big picture.
I think we have had an opportunity to take a breath, and if we allow ourselves to reset, you know, to make adjustments that would have not happened, as you said before, Anna, you know, everybody was speeding around and not actually aware of the impact of that because they were so busy being busy.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all of those things that you've talked about. It's relationships, it's connection, relationship with ourselves, relationship with others, relationship with the environment and the planet, and learning, you know, to reassess what is it that's so important, what are our values. And I know, you know, from the number of people I've talked to that they've taken this time, and to start with, that, you know, they found it a challenge, but in it they've seen the gift of having that opportunity to review what is important. That's not to say it hasn't been incredibly challenging for many, and I've no doubt the challenges will continue. But if we can all take a little bit of that learning moving forward, and I think your point, Sukhdev, about being kind, you know, if everybody was a little kinder to themselves and to others, the world would be a far better place. So as we're moving on and we're getting towards the end of the interview, what is it that you have on offer, Anna, and how can people get hold of you?
I work in a variety of different ways. So I work with people one-to-one. I work in group coaching formats. I have a membership group. So there are lots of different ways of working with me. Yeah, all sorts of different varieties.
And how would people find that out? Where would they come?
Yes, so the best place would be my website to start with. So it's www.annaandersoninc.com, and that will signpost people to all the different ways of getting in touch with me.
And we'll make sure that all of that is in the show notes.
Okay.
So what advice would you offer our listeners moving forward?
Where to begin? To realize that you are never stuck, that your subconscious might be holding patterns that are keeping you in stories, but actually it is completely, totally and utterly possible for you to change, move forward, for you to grow, for you to follow those desires. I was speaking to a lady today and she said, it's too late for me. I had so much I wanted to do in the world. I wanted to set the world on fire. And I was like, stop right there. It is never too late. It's never, you're never too old. So to follow your heart's desire and to be brave enough and courageous enough to take a little step. So, I'm worried about chunk it down, right? So that might seem really big, but don't compare your chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 20. They all started somewhere. So what is it that's going to move you forward in the direction of you feeling joyful? And do that every day, and that will change your life.
Pretty good advice to me. Sukhdev, have you any final questions or comments?
Yeah, just for, let's say somebody's, for the audience who's listening out there, and they feel they are stuck and they do too much for other people. We were talking about that earlier, how people do too much for others and they don't put themselves first. Yeah. What would you say to, a new mother or anybody who feels that way, like they are doing too much for others and they never have enough time for themselves, and everybody's just, they're giving and never filling up?
Yeah. Two things. So the first thing, I'm always interested in intention. Why are we doing what we're doing? What is the driving force behind what we're doing? So there's often a belief, I'm worthy when I do that. So to really step back and start to ask questions, I believe that awareness is curative. So if we get aware, then we can start to question whether or not the things that we're doing are serving ourselves and others. So slow down and to just make a little bit of space. I understand being really busy, but there's always room for 10 minutes, and often are we filling those 10 minutes with scrolling on our phone or, being unconscious? How much consciousness is there in our lives? And it doesn't take a huge amount to start making a difference, but just to invite in a little bit of space to be conscious and question every day. And I think journaling is a great place to start to get curious of ourselves and becoming aware of our internal world and who we are. So probably start somewhere along those lines.
Yeah, that's really good. Like journaling, it could take even if it's a minute a day.
1 minute. Yeah.
It's something small, and it's something that they can look back and track their progress. And that's a really good tip.
Yeah. And what am I grateful for today? I love the power of gratitude. It's not possible to be stressed and overwhelmed and grateful all at the same time, is it? So if I can be grateful all the time, then I can't be stressed or overwhelmed. So I'll be over there, thanks.
You're also in the moment, aren't you? You can't be worrying about the past or anxious about the future if you're actually in the moment of now of gratitude. I think it's a really powerful place to be.
It really is. So yeah, maybe 3 things that you're grateful for. And people say, well, my life's really hard, I haven't got anything. And it's like, well, what about a warm cup of tea in your hands? What about
good plumbing is mine.
Yeah.
Nice hot shower.
Yeah.
Cup of tea.
Click on a light switch. We're pretty,
yeah.
We've got a few things that we can be grateful for.
There's so many things. Yeah.
And there's always the natural world. For me, that's always a huge restorative power, is to, particularly we're all in the Northern Hemisphere, we're seeing the spring flowers pop up everywhere. It's just beautiful. It's lovely.
Absolutely.
So any final thoughts, Sukhdev, or shall I bring things to a close?
No, I want to thank Anna for being here and sharing your knowledge, wisdom, and everything great you're doing for women out there. And just keep it up. And yeah, you're making the world a little bit better every time. So keep going.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. So just give us the website again. As I say, it will be in the show notes, but for anyone watching.
Yeah, it's www.annaandersoninc.com.
Lovely. And as I say, we'll put those in the show notes. It just remains for me to say thank you hugely for being our guest. It's been an absolute pleasure, and look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the world, because I'm sure it's going to be great. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.